It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. All right, so we have spent some time talking about the strengths of the Republican Party, some of the candidates. We talked about DeSantis because we had played an audio cut earlier. We had talked about J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and then we go to Democrats. And, you know, when Democrats talk about 2028, and you sit there and you go, wow, there's, you know, who is there? And I just want to play this audio cut, and it came from the 5. Apparently Kennedy was on the 5. Remember the former MTV, was she a VJ or was news or was she a VJ?
I think she was a VJ. I think so.
Yeah. I remember her saying, I used to imitate her in the 90s. I don't want to do it because it could be perceived as mean, but because her voice was a tiny bit higher at that point. And I'm not going to tire it.
Yeah, we wouldn't want you doing that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But no, she has some libertarian positions.
Yeah,
sure. But she was just great here, absolutely fantastic in analyzing Kamala Harris. And again, because of everything, all the breaking news over the last couple of days, we forgot about the fact that on the book tour, Kamala Harris was booed.
Yeah.
She was protested. Yeah. And it's like, well, we know it's not conservatives. There isn't anybody on the right that says we need to make sure we're there when Kamala Harris speaks to protest her. No, everybody's like, no, let her speak and let her speak freely.
Yes.
So who was protesting her? Pro-Hamas people. Mm-hmm. So here it is. Here's Kennedy talking about it. It just, the way she put it is just great. Here we go.
You always have to look at the coalition that presidents put together when they win. Because they're always at a headwind. Our presidential elections now are pretty tight, not as tight as, she likes to say. But what's fascinating about her is the coalition of people who really don't like her. It's like some of them are just apathetic and some of them look at her and they cannot, like Chris Cillizza the other day was talking about how someone who has been in politics for so long, for so many years, is so incredibly bad at it. I think she feels like this is a big sick burn when she's like, I'm not the president. It's like, yeah, for very obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. Like, number one, you have a liberal event. Like the progressive wing, the most liberal wing of your party, they despise you. That has to absolutely say something about her. But what's most fascinating to me is in the book, she obviously had to include some juicy nuggets so people would go out and buy it because her story is really a boring failure. Mm-hmm. But she and Gavin Newsom have this bubbling rivalry that is only going to get worse and worse and worse over the next couple years because she slagged him in the book. And now he took a bunch of her staffers and they're going to stick with him when he runs for president. And that's going to be the sick burn. And I can't stand either of them.
What's fascinating about her is the coalition of people who really don't like her. You have a liberal event like the progressive wing, the most liberal wing of your party, and they despise you. That has to say something about her. And you think about it, it's so true. And I would add Tim Walz to that.
Oh, yeah.
And also Gavin Newsom.
Well, they all come off as cartoonish.
Yeah, it just...
all of them. It's just weird watching them. Because you have to remind yourself, Tim Walz is a sitting governor. Newsom is the current governor of California.
I know.
It's because honestly, I sometimes will put myself in that mindset of, okay, just woke up from a coma from 20 years or whatever. And then listening to any of those three that you just mentioned, going, wait, you're saying she was vice president? Wait, he's a current governor and that guy's a current governor? They're clowns.
Well,
I mean, these are not intelligent people. And tell me what they're getting done aside from the radical agenda.
well, when you see what Trump has accomplished, which is really incredible, and the fact of the shutdown going on now, the talk of the shutdown is because of the Democrats. I still don't understand the entire narrative of this, but because the Democrats are going to have the No Kings rally in Washington because we're not going to have a king. I see Whoopi Goldberg saying Trump wants to be king of the world. On Tuesday's ABC's The View, co-host Whoopi Goldberg said President Trump wanted to be king of the world. Part of what's happening is the slow rollout of total control, and that's what it is. And to me, when he's talking to other countries and telling them what to do, when he's talking to everybody but us, I have a little bit of a problem with this. I just feel like, listen, I'm glad you did all of that. I'm glad the hostages are home. I'm glad you want me now to flip back and say, hey, we're going to take care of Ukraine. Okay, but you need to take of us, but you need to get behind in gear here. I have no idea what that. And then Joy Behar, and stop making trouble in Chicago and places like that. I mean, it's just complete. And this is the thing that's going on now with everything that Trump has shown, where countries are cheering him, where you had the left and right of Israel both cheering him. People forget about that.
Yeah.
That Israel has a right and a left.
Right.
And they're all cheering him and bringing people together.
Right.
And it's really interesting because you do have on the left, they're furious that Trump is projecting America power. That's what he's doing.
And winning at it.
And, and we said this a long time ago when people said, why do we have to be the world's policeman? Well, we still are. It's the cards you've been dealt. It's what reality is. And Trump acknowledges it, but he added a caveat, which is we're not going to be the first to put the boots on the ground. You got to take responsibility. And when you take responsibility, and you pay your fair share, hey, NATO, whatever, you get to have more control. And when you have more control and more of a say in how you want to keep your area of the world democratic, we'll be right behind you to push it. He's saying if you're stronger, we'll be stronger with you.
If you want a place at the table, help pay for the table.
Help pay for the table, and then we'll back you even more.
Yeah.
You have our backing. Well, you have a certain part of MAGA that doesn't like that. They thought he was an isolationist. Just stay out of it. I was listening to Ron Paul the other day. I thought he was going to have a heart attack. Not Rand, Ron. Because they don't want that. But the world is seeing it, and the majority of Americans are seeing it and going, this is okay. This is okay what's going on. And with all this going on, then the whole No Kings thing, the whole No Kings march, he's an authoritarian. They're still going to attempt to make the case that the guy that now Jews around the world are celebrating as a great liberator and defender of Jewish causes is Hitler.
Yep.
I mean, you can't make this up. We're actually getting to the scenario where what are some of the scenarios where they said, if Trump walked on water, they would. I forgot what it is.
Yes, he walked on water. They would write about how he couldn't swim.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
That whatever, no matter what he does, that is absolutely great. They will take the opposite view, and that's what they're attempting to do, and that's the insanity of it. That's the insanity of right now, and not the Republican Party. When you look at next year, like I said, prices matter, and foreign relations doesn't win you elections alone. The economy,
well, because there's not going to be a story on this likely every day.
Right. The economy is what matters.
It's what you're encountering.
Right. It's
what the voter is encountering every single day.
Price is what people feel every day. And we said the same. It's the same for Republicans or Democrats, as we told Democrats. Ignore prices to your own peril.
Yep.
But other than that, the Democrats, but the great wild card, number one, could be the Supreme Court, and number two, that the Democrats are so crazy. That's the thing that I don't know where next year is going, because you thought that the Democrats would attempt to moderate, and they're not.
Yeah, they don't have any interest in that. And I think the radical left, I think, carries so much weight in terms of a burden on the voters in terms of their, what they think about the left. It's quite possible that even with prices not coming down, you could see the Republicans win. Now, another part of that is we are talking about the House and those Republicans running for re-election in the Senate. And the president is going to have to campaign heavily, but they have to be also carrying their own weight in their own campaigns, and hopefully they can do that effectively. I want this president to have the benefit of the House and the Senate with him throughout his entire second term.
It's absolutely imperative. You have to.
They lose the midterm, and aside from foreign relations, aside from, other items like that, his agenda is over. And that would be absolutely tragic. Absolutely tragic. I don't know how in the world you vote for the radical left, but they're still doing it. There's still millions of people that are doing it.
Should any Virginia race be even close right now? Whether it was for the governor or whether it's for the attorney general?
No.
Shouldn't be close.
It's insane.
Shouldn't be close.
That Jay Jones, the pressure on that whole situation, didn't have him saying, I apologize to everybody and I'm dropping out. Day one.
Yeah.
The moment that story hit.
Yep.
But they're doubling down in their support. They know.
I mean,
the pressure.
The races have tightened.
Yes,
then.
right.
Tightened,
but it should have been, the pressure should have been a no-brainer.
But
by the way, it should have been from their own party.
But on all the issues there, it should be 60-40, even in Virginia.
Yeah.
Because on the 80-20 issues, I'm sure they're 70-30 in Virginia.
Right.
And so Republican, but you have to understand the Democrat voters that are still left in the Democratic Party, they believe the insanity of all the issues that we all have gone over. They go, that's insane, that's insane, that's insane, that's insane. Well, that's what they believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Owner-operators with authority generally have two options when it comes to sourcing freight. Brokers on the spot market or directly from the source, the shipper. As any trucker with relatively recent experience with spot freight knows, the highs of working the load boards can be really high. On the other side of that coin, however, when the market flips in favor of shippers, it can be tough to keep your business afloat working with brokers. The smallest carriers with direct customers, however, can hang on through tough times or even prosper, as long as demand for their customers' product remains at least somewhat stable. Owner-operators in it for the long haul make direct business with customers a principal goal. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So we were talking about the Supreme Court and redistricting, how that could make a difference for next year. CNN did some analysis on it, and they don't explain everything because you can't see the chart. So I'll explain it. Basically, 8 seats the Republicans could pick up from redistricting. 19 if the Supreme Court says, sorry, you can't take race into consideration when you do districts.
Yeah.
Here it is. Here's the analysis. Here we go.
Actually represents pretty accurately, mathematically, how the country is divided over the question of the presidency. But if you look at this is what the party pickups would be for congressional districts. Republicans, 5. Missouri, 1. North Carolina, 1. Ohio, 2 or 3. Indiana, 1 or 2. Florida, still discussion down there, but that could be another gold mine for them if they tipped it even further their way. Kansas 1, New Hampshire 1, and Nebraska. Democrats, Utah, California, Maryland. Look at this. If you offset California and Texas, Missouri and Utah, North Carolina and Maryland, everything left over is an advantage to the Republicans. And don't forget, the Supreme Court is considering what could really be the end of the Voting Rights Act, which would protect minority groups. So you don't have a state that's half black, for example, that elects only 1 congressional member and everybody else goes to the Republicans that would represent that population in some ways. So if that is gutted, Democrats could lose 19 seats.
It's 6 to 8 seats just through redistricting alone. Republicans would pick up. Now, they say 19 could lose 19 seats. That's a guesstimate as how they would redraw those districts. And I don't know if that's inclusive of the 6 to 8.
Yeah.
They didn't explain.
Right.
So, yeah, you look at that, and it looks like the redistricting is going to be done. Would be interesting. That inquiring minds now want to know. They have piqued my curiosity, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
How many could they pick up in Florida?
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
in fact, on the larger scale, which state would be the largest pickups? Or which states would be the top pickups? If that's to happen.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't. I'm trying to find. I'll see if I can find. If they do, it could still be determined, as they said. It would be interesting to see how many. I haven't seen a number for Florida. Why is Florida under the radar in this, the whole redistricting thing? Just haven't heard a lot about it.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how much that they would pick up. So that couple of the redistricting, the Supreme Court ruling on it. I believe there's going to be some change. What that change is going to be, I don't know precisely. I do believe that it will favor Republicans in those states, but it may not be, depending, because the Supreme Court on these particular things. Would they go all the way, or would they go halfway on it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Is it a narrow ruling, or is it a broad ruling that would have a massive effect?
But the Supreme Court on that and tariffs could change everything for 2026.
Red Eye Radio live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you want. So I just did some quick research here at the bottom of the hour. They're at least looking at the 20th district in Florida. That's the one that they're looking at.
Okay.
That they believe they might be able to flip if they redistrict. So at least one. But I didn't even look at the rest of the district. I didn't have time to do that. But be interesting to see, because if Florida decides to do it, would even be more seats. But right now, the redistricting, and I'm so glad that it came up today, because we had talked about it, a month ago, whatever. Yeah. And it's just so many things going on. It's like, oh, yeah, where's that going? Because it is such an important and could be such an important key narrative for next year's election. If Republicans automatically pick up in redistricting, because everybody decides to do it. Everybody who can do it decides to do it. Mm-hmm. Well, then it ends up, it could be 6 to 9 or 10 votes if Florida decides to do it. Right. That go towards the Republicans.
Right.
Then if the Supreme Court comes in and says you can't have race as a major factor like it is now, that could cause another, well, I don't know if it's inclusive with those redistricting or whether it would be outside of it, but at least 19 seats would go to Republicans. Wow. By the way, looking at think about this over the last couple of years, I was just looking at the number. I mean, how Florida has exploded in Republican voters is unbelievable. Remember, it used to be a swing state?
I was thinking of that when we were talking earlier about 2028, and we were talking about strong Republicans, and we talked about Governor Abbott in Texas. We talked about Governor DeSantis in Florida. But when you look at Governor DeSantis in Florida, here's a guy who, keep in mind, I think he was the key to Florida really becoming red, and the way that he campaigned, but also his leadership. You know, you saw that during the storms that would hit Florida during that period, and you had people that were saying, look, we're very happy with the way the governor is handling what's going on here. And what was the biggest thing that they threw at DeSantis? It was the Disney thing, which was based on lies, you know, the whole don't say gay thing and all of that. And we said, well, wait a minute. What they don't understand, what Disney and all of those on the left that are taking on Governor DeSantis don't understand is standing behind Governor DeSantis is parents. You're taking on the parents. That's who you're taking on. It's not the Republican Party or the governor of Florida. It's what it represents, who they represent, and you're not going to win that with parents. And I think that's, you know, looking back on the history of Florida, that's a massive accomplishment. That's a massive turn. And imagine that the Voting Rights Act, you know, goes away. Imagine the Supreme Court goes down that road. Wow, that would be huge for the Republican Party.
I don't want to, you just reminded me, before we play the audio cut, we want to play this audio cut of the president yesterday, because it's key to the whole thing that we had talked about, where he said, okay, part 2 now of the peace deal, that's what we're going for. Mm-hmm. And we'll play what he said yesterday, because it's imperative that he said that. It is imperative that they move as quickly as possible to that. But just talking about the whole Disney thing, and the story came out yesterday, Eric Kaufman, writing for Unheard, published a fascinating piece detailing new data showing a sharp reduction in young Americans identifying as trans or queer since 2023. Kaufman, who is a professor of politics at the UK's University of Buckingham, studied several sets of data and found the trends that went up during the Great Awakening a few short years ago have reversed themselves. And this applies to Disney, because this was the whole thing, that they wanted to get kids 6, 7, 8, 9 years old and tell them you can be whatever gender, whatever sex you wish to be. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about the brainwashing that's involved in this entire thing.
Yeah.
The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, which conducts a large annual survey of U.S. undergraduates, polled over 60,000 students in 2025. His analysis of raw data shows that in that year, just 3.6% of respondents identified as a gender other than male or female. By comparison, the figure was 5.2% in 2024 and 6.8% in both 2022 and 2023. In other words, the share of trans-identified students has effectively halved in 2 years. This trend is especially marked in elite institutions. Andover Phillips Academy in suburban Boston surveys over 3/4 of its students annually. In 2023, 9.2% identified as neither male nor female. This year, that number has crashed to just 3%. A similar story emerges at Brown University. 5% of students identified as non-binary in 2022 and 2023, but by 2025, that share had dropped to 2.6%. Brain
What's
washing
behind that? Yes. It is
get the young kids in there. That
far
was the
far beyond indoctrination. Brainwashing is the better term. Programming that mind over and over again and having them again. Wow. Which gets back to the ridiculous language of, well, what gender were you assigned at birth? Assigned? Like somebody just chose it for you? And that's what they want you to believe. Well, you didn't have a say-so.
I've got to see if Gays Against Groomers have commented on this story.
Interesting point.
Because they've been on that for a while.
Yes, they have.
Probably one of the strongest organizations out there.
Yep.
I'll have to check that one out. But I just thought it was
and think about that too. Those were the still the COVID years. You could still when those numbers were much higher. 22, 23. Those numbers were higher. That was during the COVID years, and there was a lot of it was like they were ramping up the indoctrination machine. Let's and they were still in control, they believed, of the conversation. They believed they still owned the room, and which was their permission structure for conversations like that, and kicking the parents basically to the curb.
And that's why we said way back then, what type of perverted adults do that to young kids? Even think about that.
Yeah.
Think about something like that.
Right.
Oh, speaking of the COVID years, we didn't mention it. There were a lot of response on social media. Some people very ticked off that the president in his annual physical got his COVID booster.
Oh, what are you going to do? Just don't let RFK Jr. know about it.
People are like furious.
Yeah.
I can't believe that he... Why would you be upset about the president making his own medical decisions?
Right.
But that's for another day, but it just reminded me of that one because it was so funny when I saw that. This is the president yesterday on Hamas, and where he said, we're going to go to phase two, and it's going to happen quickly. Here he is on Hamas and disarming. And by the way, this comes out after the Axios story yesterday saying that there were direct talks between the Trump administration and Hamas.
Yes.
The message was not sent because you didn't know that. It was like, okay.
He said yesterday that he talked to them.
Right, and we'll have that here in a second.
Yeah.
But when the whole thing first happened, it was like, well, it's Trump and Israel making the decisions for Hamas. And we're like, well, we don't care, but that wasn't the case.
Right.
They actually talked to Hamas about it, and here we go.
They're going to disarm, and because they said they were going to disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them.
How will you do that?
I don't have to explain that to you. But if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. They know I'm not playing games. Okay? Now, we did something monumental. We got the hostages back. That was the first thing we had to do. Above all else, get the hostages back. Now, they misrepresented because we were told they had 26, 24 of dead hostages, if we can use those terms. And it seems as though they don't have that because we're talking about a much lesser number. But that's a very tough subject. I want them back. That's what they said. I want them back. Also, they said they were going to disarm. And initially speaking, they needed, they did take out a couple of gangs that were very bad, very, very bad gangs, and they did take them out. And they killed a number of gang members. And that didn't bother me much, to be honest with you. That's okay. We had a couple of very bad gangs. It's no different than other countries. Like Venezuela sent their gangs into us, and we took care of those gangs. We have Washington, D.C. is one of the safest cities in the country. It was one of the worst cities in the country if you go back just a little while ago, right? Now it's safe. You can walk to work. Isn't it nice? But we have told them we want to disarm, and they will disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently. But they will disarm. Do you understand me?
Yes. You say
because
quickly.
everyone says, oh, well, they won't disarm. They will disarm. And I spoke to Hamas, and I said, you're going to disarm, right? Yes, sir, we're going to disarm. That's what they told me. They will disarm, or we will disarm them.
Well, not a lot of wiggle room there, but something that just the news cycle is so quick that even I thought, oh man, he just brought up something that has nothing to do with Hamas. Nobody's talking about the National Guard in Washington anymore.
Yeah.
There's nothing on that.
Right.
Absolutely. He mentioned, now you can walk down the street in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing.
Right. Because the people that lived there and had to live with all of that high crime wanted somebody to do something about it, and he did. And that's who the activists and all the radicals were trying to convince was everybody that didn't live there. Look what Trump is. They had to lie about it. Look what Trump is doing. No, it's a huge success story. That's what they don't like. That's what makes them angry, is when he succeeds. They can't stand that. Chaos is their game. They need chaos for their agenda.
There's nothing. I'm just amazed how a hype and hoopla. And I was like, there's no accusations that they're doing anything wrong or nothing.
Nope.
No allegations from the left. No allegations from Democrats. Nothing.
Imagine that. Because what do? I mean, the local media is going to cover it. You're going to lie and say crime is at an all-time high? That's not true.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I said to you during the break, but I still wonder, because we had talked about that Kamala Harris had, she's on her book tour, and actually there were protesters. And when I saw that, the first thing I thought was, who's protesting her? Can't be anybody on the right. And, of course, we found out that it was pro-Hamas protesters. Mm-hmm. And then I asked you, I said, Do you think that there's no buzz at all? So she requested that the protesters showed up.
Yeah, she paid for them
or
herself.
They were paid protesters.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's like there's no buzz. Nobody wants to hear from me. We've got to make some buzz on it. All right, we got to pay some protesters.
How do we get back in the headlines?
Right. Because nobody
Wouldn't
cares.
shock me at all. Would not shock me at all.
In this day and age.
Yeah.
There are no conspiracy theories.
No.
There are only possibilities.
Well, because certainly any attention that there was given to her book is fading.
Yeah.
That's inevitable. That happens with every book.
But hers, I love it.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.